G'day viewers, welcome back to another video. Thanks for tuning in. I hope I'm keeping this content exciting and helpful and useful. I try to do things that you don't see in too many other videos. This may have been shown before, I'm not sure. But today is, now I'm not a tech guy, I'm not a geek, I don't know all the terms, so excuse me if I get them wrong. I think these some sort of transistor, and I think these are called MOSFETs. I could be wrong. However, this is what I'm doing today. Now they're going to be a bit of a mongrel to process because they've all got copper inside like that, thick heavy copper, which means I can't put them through the blender. And they're going to be awkward to bust this ceramic with the dolly pot, but I'll do the best I can. So I've also got to take into account that I don't want to have all this, it's a pretty thick plate of copper, and every single one of them is going to consume a lot of nitric. So I don't want to put all the copper in nitric, but where these legs join to the copper is where there'll be a gold bond wire. So somehow I've got to get that part in the solution. I'll have to work it out at the time. But anyway, I've not seen how these are done. I just know it's the same as an IC chip where you roast them, crush them to a powder and process them. So I've got my scales here, turn them on, put a container on, tare it. This is for those who like to see start weights. And I'll pull these into it. Okay, so I've got a start weight of 1777. So that would be 1 kilo, 770 grams. 777 grams, sorry. So the best part of 1 2/3 kilos. I don't know what that is in pounds. There's 2.2 pound to a kilo. All right, so I'm going to go and get the fire started, and I'll show you when I get there. Okay, I really wanted to use my furnace with a clay crucible. I have one somewhere that I used in my last video, but I can't find it. And there was someone who commented that they wanted an address because they were sending me one. They were going to make one up for me, and I never heard any more about it. So I've got no choice but to use a tin, and instead of using the kiln, the forge, I'm going to have to just use my open fire pit with some firewood around it. It doesn't get as hot, it won't roast them properly, but it'll do good enough. Got to do what you got to do with what you got. So I'm going to put some of these in. I'm not going to put too many in at once, probably just a handful at a time, because they all need to get oxidized. If I fill it to the top, then the ones down the bottom won't go white. They won't get the oxygen that they need. So I'll start just a handful, maybe two. Yeah, the tin's big enough for a couple of handfuls. Just a layer at the bottom like that. Might do one more handful. That's plenty. And then I'll, when they're glowing red, I'll pick this up with some channel locks and just give it a shake like that to make sure that they're all moved around. Once they're all white, then I'll put some more in on top. And then once they're white, I'll put more in. I'll keep doing that until the tin's full, until they're all roasted. For now, I'll put this down to stop ash getting in until the fire's under control, but this will probably burn away. It's only aluminium. It's no big deal. It's just when I get the fire started, there could be lots of ash flying around everywhere. So, safety first. I've got the hose here. Plenty of space around my fire heater. I'll bring it closer away from that plastic bin. Plenty of space around it. Like that, nothing's going to catch. All good, all safe. So I'll get some fire happening in there, put the tin in there and come back. They've been in the fire for about an hour. You can see it's glowing nicely in there. I'm just about to give it a bit of a shake. Pick up the channel locks. Yeah, they're all definitely burning in there. I'll put some more in there. One more load. I'll let them go. Another hour or so. See how that goes. Well, as you can see, they all have burnt quite nicely. There's just a couple of little black ones, but for the majority they're nice and white, which is how I want them. Now I'm going to put them in the dolly pot and crush them. Still not sure what I'm going to do about the copper. I've got to pick it out, but I've got to also make sure that I don't leave any gold attached to it. So I'll think about that, but so next step now is just to crush them up. I'll see how that goes. Alright, for any of you who haven't heard of a dolly pot and don't know what a dolly pot is, it's just I got a heavy truck axle. When you buy them from the shop, they're usually just a long piece of steel, and then they go thicker at the bottom, but this is all I got. And then a heavy thick steel tube, and I welded a base on the bottom of it. So I just put pieces in there and smash it, break everything up. Like, this is pretty heavy. This is probably 10 pound, this axle, 5 kilo, 4 kilos, something like that. So now, I don't put them all in at once. I just put a few in there, because otherwise the ones on the bottom won't get hit. Smash it up as best I can, and put it into a bucket. Put some more in there, and keep going until it's all done, and go to the next step. So I've pounded the first lot. I won't show every amount because it'll take a while to go through all that. But it comes out fairly powdery, and I'll just sieve into the bucket. And then if I see any pieces that are missed, they go back in the dolly pot. But what should mostly be here now are these copper plates I was telling you about. And you can see how they got a tag on them that usually when the things are joined to it. So far they're looking really good. I can't see any legs still joined to it. That's what I was hoping for. If I saw any pieces that still had gold attached to it, then I'd have to try and figure something out. But these are all nice and smooth. There's no solder there. There's no gold stuck to them still. This is just all copper. I'll go through it and make sure I didn't miss any. But as you can see so far, all we're looking at is copper. And maybe some steel legs. So now, I pick all this copper out. And it's perfectly good copper For those of you who like to scrap copper, it can be put in a crucible and melted, but in my case it's perfect for the stock pot. So all these bits of copper, I'm going to go through them individually, make sure there's no gold on them, and I'm going to put them aside and they go in my stock pot. Absolutely perfect for it. So out of that bunch, seemed like I got quite a lot. There's all this stuff here which is still a bit chunky. There's bits of copper in there, but there's also some chunky bits of what do you call it, ceramic, that's not yet broke up. So that's all that's going back in. There's a nice pile of copper. I've painstakingly gone through every single one of those one by one to make sure there's no gold stuck to them. And some bits of copper in here that still have, or might have, so they're going back in just to make sure. I'll give you an example. This piece here, see if I can get the focus, see how it's still got like where something was soldered onto it. And I don't want to take a chance that there's gold in there, so that's going back in. So that'll get tipped back into my dolly pot. I'll do that. I'll move the plate in a minute and make sure I get all that out of there. And I'll smash all that up again, filter it again, and I'll just keep doing that until it's all done. So I'll come back when I'm finished. Of all the dumb things to do, I had this sitting on here like I did before, and I was picking out bits of copper like I was before, and the plate fell into all the ash that I had just sieved out. And I've tried picking it back up out of there, putting it into the sieve, and because it's wet, there was already water in the bucket from the rainwater. It's been raining, so the ash was all wet, and then I had to, it was all clumped onto here like this, and I've had to hose it down, try and hose it all through, and I've got majority of the dust through, and any small particles like any little bits of gold that would have gone through. I'm fairly certain, even though there's debris on here, that it's not going to be gold. I think it's just copper legs and so on. But the good news is, if there's a silver lining on every cloud, that because this is going in my stock pot, if there is any gold in there, I won't lose it. And as the copper dissolves, the gold will be left behind. But yeah, dumb mistake, rookie mistake on my part. I'm happy to show my mistakes. So now my siev's all wet. It's going to be really hard to get that copper out. I'm going to keep hosing this off and then just assume that all the gold's gone. There may be some in here. I might get a false reading at the end because, you know, they might not recover as much gold. Some of it could be in here. I'm sorry about that, but, you know, we all make mistakes. And I've hosed this out so many times that the bucket's nearly half full of water. So all I can do is just start again. It's all metal. You can see when you look at it, there's not really much to it. So most of the chunky stuff that needed to be broken back up has already been tipped back into my dolly pot, and I've still got some in here to do. Not much. So I was only left with all the coarse bits anyway. My only other option, which I don't want to do, is to get all this stuff, copper and all, put it in here, but that would use up so much nitric dissolving all that gold, and I just don't want to do that. I'd prefer to miss out on a bit of gold now and recover it later in the stock pot. So I'll be a bit more careful for the rest of it, but look at the size of the copper amount. That's a huge amount of copper. I won't be in a hurry to do these again. That is a lot of copper. Like, I'm talking maybe a pound, half a kilo, maybe a kilo even. And it's still got more to go yet. So I'll carry on. I'm down to the last of it now, and just all the chunky stuff that won't go through the sieve. And I feel much better thinking about it now, because when I'm looking at this closely, it's just all tiny bits of metal. bits of copper that hasn't been like small ones, because there's lots of small transistors in there. So I reckon that's just all small bits of copper, maybe some little chunks of ceramic, but I don't think there's any gold in there. Like I said, if there is, I'm not going to lose it. But this last bit of chunky stuff, just to make it simple, I might as well put it on here as well. No point in having a little bit of coarse in my mix. So now I'm going to hose my sieve out, make sure all the gold dust is off it. And the next step, even if I hadn't spilt the gold in there, the copper in there, would be to wet this down anyway. So now I've got to gravity separate all the gold from the ceramic. I'm going to fill this up, stir it up, and then give it just a couple of seconds to settle. All the heavies will fall down, and I'll be able to rinse off all the ash water and the small tiny bits of silicon. I'll pour it into another bucket just to catch anything that goes across, so I can have a look for a secondary, like a safety bucket, I suppose you'd call it. So I'll get to that in a minute, but right now I'm just going to stir all this up, let it set for a second, and then pour it off. Okay, I filled it up once, poured it into this bucket, then I poured this bucket off, and that's the sediment that I caught. So I'll investigate that later. I'll do it again. I'll just keep doing this until my wash water is clear. When I see no ash and bits in there and I'm just pouring off clean water, then I'll stop. You can give it a shake halfway, stir it up, get something in there and mix it all up. Make sure you get all the ash from the bottom. I might put this on jet just so I can get a decent spray of water going in her, like that. And I'll fill this to the top, and I'll do the same thing again. I'll pour it into there, let it sit for a second, I'll pour that off, and then I'll come back to this, and at the very end I'll pour that sediment back into here. So I'll carry on with this. So I'm ready for the third rinse, and I just wanted to talk about something. Most of you guys, I'm assuming, aren't going to make the mistake I made and tip all your copper into the ash, which means you're going to be left with the sediment in your sieve. And you're going to be wondering, well, now what do I do? Well, you have two choices. With ICs and BGAs and so on, you would then tip that coarse mix into the ash, or treat it separately. So you could do the same thing. You could put all the residue that's in the sieve into here, or treat it separately. But there is a lot of copper in there, and in where I live, nitric acid is expensive. I don't want to consume copper needlessly and waste acid. So your other choice is to do what I'm going to do and put it in the stock pot. If you guys want to keep all those copper bits for melting it into bars or something, that's fine. I'd suggest all the crumbs at the bottom you put in your stock pot. So that's what my opinion is, what you should do with the sediment. So just in case you're wondering, well, he didn't show me what he did now because he made a mistake. So there's your choices. Mix it in with this, treat it separately, or put it in your stock pot. Anyway, I'll get back to the third rinse, and I'll probably take, I don't know, this might take 7 or 8 rinses or more. There's the sediment I'm catching there. This is why you have a safety bucket. And I'm seeing lots of silvery coloured stuff in there. I don't know if these contain silver or not. I'm guessing they do, because that looks to me like silver. If that was aluminium, it wouldn't have stood the heat in the fire. So we'll find out soon enough. Alright, so I'll get back to it. This is my 5th wash, and I just want to show you something. When it's all getting stirred up, and I get close to the top, And when I stop the water, I see all the silver coloured looking specks. Can you see the silver coloured specks? Some of them are bubbles, but there's all the silver stuff. Now I don't know if it's actually silver or what it is, and I don't know the density of silver. I know gold is 19 times heavier than water, but I'm not sure how long it takes silver to settle. So I don't wait too long, but I don't let it go over the edge either. I just sort of give it a second. Just wait for some of that silver stuff to go away, just in case it is silver. And then now I'll pour it in. This is my 9th wash. And as you can see, the water's pretty clear. The water's up to here. There was a tiny bit of stuff floating around and it settled out real fast. So I'm happy with that. For some of you who don't have patience and probably get to 3 or 4 washes and think, oh, that's all right, you're actually better off doing as many washes now as you can, even more than if you need to. Because otherwise what you're going to do is have an excess amount of ash, which you're going to have to process. As it is, there's going to be a lot of ash in here, but big stuff. And ash is phenomenal for blocking up your filters. And if you keep a lot of fine ash in there, you're going to go through so many filters, it's not funny. I go through 5 or 6 easy. So the downside to doing this type of thing, OC chips and BGA chips, I always go through so many coffee filters, and that's trying to remove as much ash as possible. So for those of you who think, oh, a few washes will be fine, you're going to pay for it when you're doing your process, because you're going to have so much more fine, ultra fine sediment to deal with. Anyway, I'll pour that off now and put all the sediment into a beaker. I've got it in the beaker now, and I've got it on heat with water in it. Haven't put nitric acid in yet. What I did was I rinsed it 5 times with rainwater to get all the chlorinated tap water out of it, in case there's silver in there. So I'm just heating it up. And I was going to put nitric in sooner, but I got carried away watching TikTok. So I'm going to put some nitric in now. I'll put it in slow since it's hot, in case it reacts. Just see how that goes first. Oh, good. You always want to be careful in case there's a runaway reaction. And see what that does now. Give it a chance to consume any copper that may be in there, because there will be little bits of copper. Maybe some silver in there. See, it's starting to react already. And give that some time on heat now. May need a bigger beaker. I hope I don't need a taller beaker. We'll see. You see the little bits floating on top is the only ash I missed. You can usually tell what ash you've missed by what's floating on top now. And that's not too bad. So, the waiting game and see what that nitric consumes. Okay, so I'm going to assume that most of the base metals have been dissolved out of there. I will give it a second treatment. But now, I'm going to find out if there's any silver in there. I've got a sample of it in this little beaker. And I'm got some hydrochloric acid in a thing. I'm going to put some in there. And it should go cloudy. That's not cloudy in the slightest, so there's no silver in there. So now I can just safely assume it's only copper. I'll tip that out and I'll do another nitric bath to see if I can get any more out. Okay, so I've drained out the solution and it's filtering in here. And I reckon any of that sediment that's in there is just any last of the fine dust that I would have missed, because I poured it real slow. Most of it was liquid till the last bit. And most of the solids stayed where they were, except that bit of dust that went in it. So I'm convinced that there's any gold will be in here. I'm going to rinse it now and pour that into the funnel and keep rinsing it until no blue water comes out. I want to try and get any copper and any other base metals out of there so that I'll have a nice clean aqua regia mix. So I'm going to pour some more water in there, give it a rinse, keep doing that. and come back to you when I'm ready to do aqua regia. Oh, I'll do another leach first, I mean. So I'm rinsing it off. I don't know if you can see, but all I can see in there now is tiny bits of glass from the circuit die. There's no coloration of any blue, but I'm going to still try and get rid of that, because any of that sort of stuff, there's no gold amongst glass. It's all those shiny little speckles getting around. So the gold has already settled. That's just glass. I'm going to try and pour a lot of it off into here, and I want to get a nice clean mix when I'm ready to do the aqua regia. I'll do another nitric bath first, and what I'm going to do is, when I do my second extraction of the aqua regia, just to make sure I got it all, then I'll include this filter. But I don't believe there's any gold in the filter. I think it's all in here, because each time I've poured liquid into the filter, I've waited until it all settles down, and it's only the light stuff that's pouring off, and all this glass bits and pieces. So, but I'll just keep going with this for now, and showing you how it's nice and clear now. It's just glass in there. Okay, I put some more rainwater in there, and now I'm going to put some more nitric in and do a second bath, try and get any more copper out. It's been boiling now for half an hour, maybe a bit more, and as you can see, there's only the slightest bit of fumes in there. So it's obviously dissolving something, but there's not much of whatever it is, because there's a fair bit of nitric in there. The nitric won't go to waste. I'll use that for silver recovery, but I just wanted to show you that the fumes are so slight, I've almost got all the base metals out. Well, it's the next day, and as you can see, there's the tiniest little bit of colour. So I'd say I've got all the base metals out of there. Now I'm going to drain this off, rinse it off, and put aqua regia in there. I drained it off, rinsed it out. There's still a bit of rainwater in there, that's not going to hurt. And now I'm going to put some hydrochloric acid in. Don't need much, 50 ml, 100 ml, whatever that worked out to be. And it is crucial that you guys understand this, what I'm about to do. 1 pipette, not even full, of nitric acid, that's it. And then each time I need more, I'll add a little bit more. I can't tell you how many times people ask me for help and they've got way too much nitric acid in there. Don't go by these stupid recipes that people talk about. 5% of this, and you just do small amounts at a time. If you make up a recipe, you'll go wrong every time. So I'll put this on some heat, and I'll cover it. And when I see all the fumes in there, I'll know that there's gold dissolving. When the fumes stop, I'll know to put a little bit more nitric in there. And I'm talking like half a pipette at a time, which is probably a mil or 2 mils at best. Please guys, don't go over nitricking, because you will not get your gold back until you get rid of it. So I'll let that sit now and cook, dissolve the gold. When I turned it off last night, there was no reaction in there, and this morning I came out and I put another pipette of nitric in, and I've still had no reaction. So I'm guaranteed to have gotten all the gold out of it. I won't even need a second extraction. So now I'm going to filter that, get the aqua regia away from all the sediment, and drop the gold. This particular brand of coffee filters that I'm using, they're actually really garbage. They're no good. So what I've done is I've put 2 cotton balls in there, down the tip of the filter. And so I only really want to catch the sediment in the paper so I can throw it away after I rinse it. But even with the cotton balls, it started coming out nice and yellow, as you can see around there, but then it's going dark now, so I'll end up running this through two new cotton balls after it's finished. You want the solution as clean as you can get it. You don't want any contaminants in there of any kind, or you're going to make life so much harder for yourself. The cleaner you can get your gold solution, the better the gold will turn out. And you know, there's a lot of muck in here that I don't want in the final product. I've got a nice clean beaker. It is stained, but it's actually clean. I've just finished washing it. So any marks you see on there, it's not dirty, it's stained. I've got a feeling what's happening is the white numbers are coming off and leaving a milky residue sort of look all over the glass. Definitely clean. So you want a clean beaker with no contaminants getting into the gold residue, and you want the cleanest solution you can get. Okay, so the gold solution is filtered. The cotton balls did a really good job of catching all the silt. Look how nice this came out. There's a tiny bit of residue in there, but that'll come out when I wash it, it's no biggie. So there's all this, the sediment. There's the coffee filters. Now, I'm going to do what a lot of people don't do, and should do, and that is test for gold in solution. Even though I know it's there, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they try and extract gold that they think is in solution, but it's not. Don't need much. Now I'm going to get some testing solution and see if we do in fact have gold. There's nothing worse than when you think you got gold in solution and you're doing everything you can to try and drop it, but there's actually no gold in there. Well, it's very weak because it's watered down. So there's not much gold in there by the looks of it. I'll have a seat and wait for it. Give this a stir. I'm not expecting a whole lot of gold, mainly because with IC chips there's legs all the way around them, but with these there's only 3 little legs that come off them, and those 3 little legs have got tiny little bond wires. So for every one of these we're looking at 3 small minute little bond wires. It's not going to be much. You know, IC chips have got, I don't know how many, dozens of legs. So there's a lot more gold to be got. And I'll see if I can get a sample from further down, deeper in solution. Because that's not showing up as any gold at all. And this is exactly why you do a test. It'd be totally pointless trying to drop gold if it's not in there. I just need to sit because my back's bad. If I don't get a positive, there's no point in going through all the SMB and all that type of thing, because there's no gold to be got. It's not showing up as positive at all. And for those who wonder, I know for a fact that my test solution works, because I tested it myself the other day. So that's not showing up with any gold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a part 2 video. This will be part 1, and part 2 I'm going to investigate and find out if there was any gold, where there should be, and where it's gone. And I'll give people a chance to comment and tell me where they think the gold is. Do they think it's still in here, or do they think it's in here? If you'd like to leave your comments, and I'll come back with part 2 when I do some investigations and find out what's going on, because there's no positive test in both of those. One was on the surface and one was deeper in the solution. Not that it makes any difference, but I'll even, in my second part, I'll even show you that I test my gold testing solution and show you that it works. So I'll leave this here. Please comment and tell me where you think it is. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on part 2.